In the last couple of videos from this module, we went over the disadvantages and advantages of using a crossbow. The other thing I want to cover is just the kinds of different simple survival crossbows that are out there. One of the most easiest ways that you can make a crossbow in a survival situation I've seen is simply taking something like a 2x4 and cutting it down to about a 4-inch section, cutting diagonal grooves. So it's like the diagonal goes this way. Here's the front of your bow. Here's the diagonal cut into the wood. And what that does is you put another piece of wood in front of the 2x4 that you bolt or nail. And then you want something that has a little bit of flex, obviously, so you don't have to waste time tillering it down. You're going to attach a piece of paracord, and all you have to do is then pull that paracord back and put it into one of those notches. And what you want to do is then have a kind of channel carved into the middle of that piece of 2x4. And you sit the arrow in, and what happens is you hold it one thing, and then you pull the string out of the little knot cut that you have. And when you pull that out and then let go, it kind of acts like a bow. Now it's not your most. It is very much a primitive crossbow. There's no mechanism to hold it in place. It's probably not going to be the greatest of accuracy or strength, but in bare standard area, that's all you have to work with. That's all you have to work with. So another thing that differs from the crossbows versus your traditional longbows or other bow and arrow kind of things out there is your actual arrows used. They're referred to as bolts with crossbows because they're often very short. Now, I do say this, but there are arrows available for more modern crossbows, which are classified as tactical crossbows. And they usually are about 4 or 5 feet long in size, and they usually shoot an arrow about 4 feet long in size too. For long distance shooting, they're very accurate. They are used by the Chinese police force for snipers and everything else in environments in the urban area where they don't want to use firearms. So crossbows can be very effective, but the thing with bolts is if you're using a makeshift crossbow and you're making homemade bolts, you really need to make sure you reinforce the bolts. In the English times, what they would do is they had a piece of strip of metal that would go around the nock of the bolt, because often the force of the crossbow string being released into the bolt, if it was wood, sometimes it would actually split down into the bolt of the wood and split the actual bolt in half. The great thing about bolts is you don't have to limit yourself to wood. I've seen some very effective bolts for crossbows made out of solid pieces of aluminum stock. You get a nice big 3/4 piece of aluminum stock. It's nice and fat and round. And I've seen people just literally bevel the tip down to a point, and they'll glue on some fletching to it, and it makes a very effective bolt. The metal makes it very heavy, and that momentum behind it makes it penetrate very deep. One thing I would really advise against using is carbon fiber or fiberglass bolts. For the same reason as I try to discourage them from being used on traditional bows, especially with crossbows having so much more power behind them than a longbow. There's more chance of those kind of materials exploding on you if they're damaged and sending out shrapnel all over. With a crossbow, you are less likely to have the exploded arrow go into your hand or something like that, but there is still going to be shrapnel flying around. Can go into your eyes and can go into your face and all kinds of stuff, and it's very uncomfortable to get that stuff inside under your skin.